Hello and welcome to Don't Bury the Lead. We recap WWE Smackdown every Friday night after the bell. But this is a special episode because we're recapping on Tuesday instead. My name is John Zindel. I'm joined by Dom Scarcella. Dom, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
John, I wonder if having a few days between the episode and when we live stream might change some of our takes on what we saw here, some of our opinions. I don't know, but hey, let's find out. Without further ado, don't bury the lead. What's our top story from the August 11th edition of SmackDown?
Dom, we don't ever bury the lead on Don't Bury the Lead. And I think our top story here, as my machine is pinging like crazy, I think our top story here is Jey Uso quits the WWE. This is a big segment at the end of the show. We've been closing a lot with Bloodline. They've been opening sometimes with Bloodline, closing with Bloodline. But Jey Uso says in a promo with Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, Paul Heyman, all there, the whole gang, the whole bloodline, that he's going to quit the WWE. What did you think of this segment, Dom?
Well, it certainly takes the focus off the lousy ending to SummerSlam. Now they incorporated a little bit of that into this, where it was sort of the showdown that everybody wanted to see between Jey and Jimmy, and Jimmy saying, you know, and really in the wake of SummerSlam, this is really the only place they could have gone with this story. Is that why would Jimmy not want Jey to become tribal chief and beat Roman Reigns? Well, because he doesn't want Jey to become Roman. He doesn't want Jey to take on all of the worst aspects of Roman Reigns as tribal chief, as head of the table, as the universal champion. And I think that had some legs to it. Like, you
Yeah.
could have taken that someplace, but I don't think we're going to find out, at least not in the very short term, because whether this is kayfabe or a real life thing where Jey just needs some time off, or I can't imagine that his contract ran out and they're just going to end it like this. But Jey at the end, super kicks Roman right as Roman is saying, "Acknowledge me." Well, there you go. I'll acknowledge you with a right sneaker under your chin. Perfect timing on that one. Then he super kicks Solo. Roman recovers, hits the Superman punch, but Jey super kicks him on the spear attempt, then spears Roman. So Jey is looking really strong here in this schmoz at the end. Jey leaves the ring, and he's motioning to Jimmy, who had left the ring earlier and was 3/4 of the way up the entrance ramp. Like, Jimmy's gone. He's motioning to Jimmy, "Come back to me. Come back with me." And they kind of look like they're going to hug. Jimmy has his arms wide open. Jey puts one right on Jimmy's kisser. And I don't mean a kiss or a smooch or anything. Another super kick. And that's when Jey turns to that roving camera and says, "I'm out the bloodline, out of SmackDown, out of WWE." And he leaves through the crowd as the crowd chants for him. Now, where do you think this goes from here? I have an idea, but where do you think this goes here? What did you think of this segment? It was well executed. Where does it go?
There's two things. First thing I noticed was when Jey said he was. First of all, maybe let's just not bury the lead here. Jey Uso isn't quitting the WWE. It's storyline. Clearly, I saw some stuff online where people were like, "Jey Uso, his contract's up. He might be really done." I'm like, no. This is not how they would have him go out as a hero and quitting the WWE as over as possible. They would squash him in so many different ways, and then he would go on his way. So he would be like written off TV for a while, and Sami Zayn would be written back into the bloodline. I don't know, but so yes, Jey Uso is not quitting the WWE. Second thing, I noticed that when he said I quit the WWE, he didn't have the mic on his hand. And I feel like that was a little bit on purpose because if he screams like I quit the WWE and the crowd like erupts, that can't really look good for the WWE, especially with
No.
a legitimate competitor in AEW and anybody really that would just be disgruntled and he just says, "Hey, I quit the WWE." And then the crowd's like, "Yeah, we love you, our hero. Quit this company that we paid money to see." So I noticed that they didn't want him to get the pop, so they didn't have him do it with the mic.
That's that's a really cool detail. So the live crowd, most of them have no idea what Jey said into that camera.
Yeah, they just saw him like leaving and like saying peace and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, we love you, Jay." But
Yeah, they have no idea that he just said that. But we at home know that he said that. So where does this I'm gonna throw out something. This is now the NWO invading WCW, and then everybody in WCW turning on Sting, and Sting now just hangs out in the rafters for a long time as a guy who has no home. He becomes the Crow. He becomes a total loner. Jey Uso, it looks like he just settled all his own personal business here.
yeah,
He's got nobody. He's relying on no one. He's not attaching himself to anybody. This could be a situation where Jey is just hanging out in the rafters.
for sure. And it's weird. Oh, he could pull like a little bit of a WCW Sting thing where he's separate from the WWE and the Bloodline, like he's just
Mhm.
independent.
Now, how does this make the SummerSlam entrance more palatable for you, less palatable? What did this change your impression of how they went off the air at SummerSlam? Because this was the first SmackDown after SummerSlam. It was 6 days afterwards.
So I didn't hate the SummerSlam episode as much as most people did. I
Okay,
think it got like really buried online,
all right.
and I was like, yeah, this is the Bloodline match. Like it's going to be drug out. They didn't do anything too crazy. They went slow enough. It probably went like 10 minutes too long. And did you need the third? Like I didn't think Jimmy turning on Jay was really weird how they did it. But
Mhm.
outside of that, I was like, yeah, this is still pretty good. I didn't think it was like horrible. But ultimately, for me, I think that the bloodline angle, yeah, I think, sorry. Ultimately, this has been their bread and butter on SmackDown, and I don't know where they go from here. I think your idea might be something, but it's one of those things where they could just keep going and going with the bloodline. I don't know.
Well, from my perspective, Jimmy has to be the one to turn on Jay at SummerSlam because there'd be no way for them to have Jay super kick Jimmy here and basically admit that he has no allegiances at this point. Like there has to be something that triggered that. Otherwise, you wind up with a situation where, it's Shayna Baszler turning on Ronda Rousey for a reason that no one can possibly fathom during that tag team match.
Yeah, this at
Right?
least
There's
makes
got
a
to be
little
a
bit
reason
more.
for it.
This makes a little bit more sense than the random
Yes.
turn. And then in addition to that, I like the reasoning because there is not anything more heely than, say, for example, there's boy, can you hear that ding?
I can hear the ding. Is it people watching the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch?
It is notifications from this laptop. Sorry. So, first charge timeout. How about you tell me
First,
what you think of?
well, you were talking about how it would have been very, very heelish for something to happen. For in a sense, yeah, it would have been very heelish for Jimmy if Jimmy had not done what he had done at SummerSlam. So if the idea was to have the crowd love Jey Uso, then this accomplished that. So Jey says something that the live crowd really can't hear. Which I think is it's something. Okay, let's go with it. You know, every time they've thrown a new wrinkle into the bloodline, enough. I mean, I have nothing more for this segment unless you do. So I say unless you have something that you want to wrap up there, it's time for the rest of the show. It's time for the follow. It's time for the rest of SmackDown here. Boom, boom. Okay, we are experiencing technical difficulties. So hey, if you're watching us YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, send us a comment. Subscribe, like our live stream. Send us a comment. What do you think of this bloodline angle? I mean, as long as the bloodline is alive, the bloodline is basically the main event of SmackDown. And it's as long as it's part of a pay-per-view, it's the main event of every premium live event pay-per-view that the WWE does. What do you think of where they're going with it now? Where does this take the bloodline? I mean, I think it's, if any of our viewers want to chime in there, I'm going to let the WWE tell the story here. This is a little sketchier than the other things I've seen so far as twists in the bloodline plot, but their track record is good enough where they get the benefit of the doubt.
And, ultimately, yeah, their track record is pretty long. It's not the most interesting thing in the world, but maybe the Jimmy thing, I don't know, like let's not get too impatient because they've done such a pretty good job with it so far. So that's a lead, kind of predictable here. We'll see if Jey is just on vacation for a little bit, or if he really quit and he's going to New Japan. Who knows? But ultimately here, that's the lead. Dom, let's move into the follow.
What do you got from the rest of this great show here?
So let me tell you something. For me, the follow is going to be what was pretty shocking. Rey Mysterio is your new U.S. champion. So yeah. Rey Mysterio beats Austin Theory to win the U.S. title on SmackDown. Not even the main event, just kind of a middle of the 9 o'clock hour. So basically the storyline is Santos Escobar gets injured by Austin Theory before he's able to go out and wrestle. And then he's going to go out while injured. And Adam Pearce is at the GM. He comes down and says, "Oh, Rey Mysterio, you can go wrestle Austin Theory instead." And Rey Mysterio, the hardest working retired man in any industry, is now taking all the crazy bumps, working every show, and is now the U.S. champion. Dom, what did you think of this match with Austin Theory and Rey Mysterio?
It's a 3-minute match. Rey wins it with a 619 and a springboard splash. This is the fourth and final in-ring match of the night. Squash win for the title. I mentioned when I got a little animated after SummerSlam that, could they bury the U.S. championship any more than they were by having, the U.S. champ and the number one contender in the middle of a battle royal full of mid-carders and not even make it halfway through. Well, now the U.S. title just changed hands in a 3-minute match with a guy who wasn't even supposed to wrestle that night.
And Austin Theory's been their champ since we've been watching. So he's had
about right.
He had this huge long reign, and then he just gets squashed and drops it in the middle of the 9 o'clock hour on SmackDown. Really strange.
Yeah, I don't know if he just really fell out of favor with the creative with the office. I mean, he's no Gunther, but I mean, really, nobody on the roster is.
Yeah.
I just think maybe some of his failures, like he was supposed to be out as just a bratty instigator during the Fatal Four Ways to determine his number one contender, and maybe he dropped the ball on one of them because they were giving him gradually less and less camera time and mic time. So
Yeah.
maybe he really was. Maybe this really was kind of a performance-based minor demotion for him. But I don't. This does not feel like a major title to me.
No, and it's so weird that they have so many throwaway matches on SmackDown. So many that like I mean, there's only at least one match a week where you'd be like, yeah, you could probably cut that. You wouldn't even really need that. And they're kind of desperate for championship matches that matter. And then they had this championship match that should have been, and I think they were going pretty. I mean, I really liked what they did in that small amount of time that they had. They did a lot. And I thought the match was actually pretty good. And I was like, man, I wish this was like a real match. Like I feel
It
like
was fast paced. I mean, it's not like they slow played it and did rest holds, and then suddenly at the 3 minute mark, whoa, pinfall. It was they moved. They moved and they worked.
I was thinking during this match, I like the transition to the 619, what they did at the end, which led to the finish. They did a couple transitions there that were really cool, where he kind of teased the 619, he wasn't able to get it, teased 619, wasn't able to get it, and then was able to get it. Like I thought that went really well, considering they didn't have a lot of time. That's all they could really do was just tease the finish, hit the finish, go home. But ultimately, wish it was longer. And I wonder if Rey Mysterio actually got injured against Escobar. Remember when he lost to Escobar due to injury?
Yeah, they had to stop the match because the word was that Ray catching Santos on that dive um, really did get his bell rung a little bit when he hit the mat, and his head, the back of his head, bounced off the. I mean, it's padded, but it bounced off the padded floor there. Um, I wonder if it was a situation where he couldn't work that long, but then why play up the whole thing where Santos is getting attacked by Austin Theory? Why not let Santos Escobar go out there, have a real match with Austin Theory? Austin Theory goes over, but then down the road you put the belt on Ray. I mean, if they cut this match short because Ray can't really compete very well, then it seems even worse they put the belt on him, because now how's he going to defend the title if he's having trouble putting on full Rey Mysterio matches? I mean, Rey Mysterio matches are challenging to begin with because Rey has to work so much more quickly and so much more energetically than a big man would.
Mm-hmm.
So if he really can't deliver that to people for more than 3 minutes at a time, why put the belt on?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is a mess. I don't get this.
It's a mess. Yeah. I like Rey Mysterio. I like what he's done. He's a freaking legend. He's wrestled really well in a lot of matches. He has the most creative dive. I love the baseball slide dive. It's the only
Yes.
dive I like. But ultimately, from a creative standpoint, what are we doing here? Why is he dropping this title randomly, and why is it a 3-minute squash after he's been a champ for a year? And there's no IC title on SmackDown. This is it. Like we have the WWE title, which can't get really defended because Roman's the champ, and then you've got the US championship. So I don't know what we're doing here.
So it's interesting that you bring up. Had you heard anything that maybe Ray's injury was total kayfabe or was not real? Because I didn't really look for anything along those lines after hearing the first reports.
I'm just speculating, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm just speculating.
Yeah, it's the kind of match that leads one to wonder, isn't it?
For sure. Well, that's the huge. I mean, the lead is Jey Uso quitting. The U.S. title was dropped randomly. Wish this was kind of in the main or the opener, and it got 20 minutes, and that would have been great. But let's move on here. Anything else? Any other matches from the show that you want to talk about, Dom?
I want to talk about all of them, but my favorite thing that happened on the show was Edge's in-ring promo. He gets a huge pop from the Calgary crowd saying he wasn't originally scheduled to be there, but next Friday in Toronto was when they're supposed to have the big 25th anniversary of Edge's debut. And that might be fantastic. He cuts a wonderful promo, puts over Sheamus, tells a great story about Sheamus motivating him to get back into pro wrestling after Edge's neck surgery. And then Sheamus comes out with Ridge Holland and Butch, but they're just there to kind of cheer from the back of the corner. And Sheamus cuts a great promo. These guys this was a really fun promo. Yeah. I thought this was a great segment. The crowd loved it. It made me more interested in each of the performers, each of the wrestlers, and it made me want to watch their match the following SmackDown. And they didn't go total. And this is where Sheamus is a real pro. They were having such a feel-good moment for the whole 10 minutes they were out there or whatever. The crowd loved it. It wasn't dragging. They gave him a lot of time, but it moved and it was compelling. But at the end, instead of it being, like just two old friends having an exhibition, as they're hugging, Sheamus says something to the effect of, I hope you didn't bite off more than you can chew. To Edge, like, yeah, we're friends, but if you think I'm going to go easy on you next week, no. And as they're backing away from the hug, you could see Edge, not with the mic up to his mouth, but he's going, okay. So they throw that in there that these guys are going to wrestle. These guys are going to throw down and test each other next week. I love that segment. That was my favorite segment of the night. I really enjoyed that. It was something that was surprising to me. I've talked about Sheamus, where as long as we've been watching, he's been basically a grade C performer because they just put him in things where he's replaceable. Mm-hmm. This was maybe the first time it looked like something about Sheamus's history really mattered. And I think this is going to be just a great little novelty where Edge and Sheamus meet for the first time ever in a one-on-one match, despite them being in WWE together, stretching back almost 20 years. I think this is going to be fun. I was glad to see it. What you think of a talking segment?
I usually don't care as much for the talking segments, but it probably was a highlight of the night. The second biggest pop, I'm going to go ahead and say, because there was a first one, and we'll talk about him later. So the second biggest pop of the night was Edge coming out. And he's running, when he comes to when he comes up and he comes out directly and he runs to the right and he runs to the left and he gets like that part of the crowd fired up, that part of the crowd fired up. It's like, yes, this is what the babyface does in Canada.
Right.
So all the little things he does right. He's kind of joking around about being in Toronto, like, hey, come on, because they start booing Toronto. He's like, but I'll be there, and like he has a good exchange and just a naturalism on the mic and good segment overall, I'd have to say. But we're going to move on.
Two pros, two seasoned veterans, and they delivered.
Yeah, probably the best segment of the night. But we're going to talk about the American Classic that I have been asking for.
Okay.
I have been begging WWE Creative for this match. L.A. Knight versus Top Dollar. I've wanted this bad boy for a while because I said, Top Dollar, he might surprise you one day. No.
Did he surprise you here in this 2-minute match?
No, he did not surprise me.
Okay.
This was a glorified, this was a squash. So yes. LA Knight goes out, he squashes Top Dollar. Top Dollar still earning his paycheck, still horrible in the ring. I mean, he couldn't do they didn't make him do any moves. And LA Knight, although I think he's a good worker, he's not a great worker. So I'm like, let's not see what he can do. This reminded me a little bit of when we would do like indie shows in NJCW and you would wrestle someone has no idea what they're doing. These are the kind of moves you would do, like hold me on the second rope and then put your foot up and then I'll just choke.
Yeah.
And Top Dollar takes kind of like a running, oh God, like a bulldog kind of off the turnbuckle. Anybody can take a bulldog. So he
Yeah,
just
second turn rope bulldog by LA Knight. Yep.
so he does the simplest move possible to him, and then he hits him with the finisher, and they go home. And it's just like, okay, Top Dollar has been asked to do nothing in the last 3 months, just because ever since the dive, they're just like, yeah, he's horrible. He can't do anything.
The dive was in December.
Oh, right. So it's been 8 months.
It's been 4 months since WrestleMania.
Right.
It's been a long time since Top Dollar has been in a wrestling match as a wrestler. This match, does this match help anybody? It doesn't help. Maybe it helps Top Dollar because it shows that he can still get into the ring and be the big lumbering guy. He has the facial expressions. He at least laid down in the correct area to take the moves from LA Knight. This does not possibly help LA Knight. He already did this last week with the roles reversed, where Ashante Villadonis was in the ring and Top Dollar was on the outside, just getting punched off the apron at some point. This week they flipped it. This does not help LA Knight. LA Knight had a much better segment on Raw the 4 days earlier where he was in there with The Miz. This does not help LA Knight. This does not help Top Dollar. This does not help the rest of Hit Row. I don't know who this helps.
You know, LA Knight, you got the right winner. It's a short throwaway match, and for this SmackDown, it's probably one of the better things you saw. So,
the crowd doesn't want to see LA Knight squash Top Dollar. I mean, okay, you wanted to see that. Maybe there's a few other people just for the car wreck, train wreck aspect of it. Like, oh my goodness, he's in there with Top Dollar.
Yeah, freak show.
We don't. No one is. People are not cheering for LA Knight because they want him to squash low carders.
Yeah. So ultimately, but you did get a promo from LA Knight. So instead of
you did get a little promo for like it's an excuse to get him on camera, but I don't think this doesn't help LA Knight.
I have one note for this match: LA Knight versus Top Dollar, American Classic. American Classic, damn it.
The two matches in the 9 o'clock hour ran a total of about 5 minutes.
Right. So
combined, they were a squash.
Right. Moving on here, we have some more matches in the show. We finally see the blow off. It felt like this feud has been going on forever. You got AJ Styles versus Karrion Kross. AJ Styles wins and beats Karrion Kross.
Yep.
Kind of a sloppy match, but I think AJ Styles is the right winner. And I think, there were some pretty cool spots from AJ, and Karrion Kross really, really in the vein of what we started talking about with Karrion Kross when we first started this show here. Karrion Kross, really weird nuclear bomb promo before he comes out. And it's like the end is near and like there's a countdown and there's all these bombs about to drop. And you're like, what is this gimmick?
He's also hinting at having a stable. The theme of this show was, for the most part, stables. Everything was stables. The Bloodline was the main event. LWO, with maybe there's a reason for them to have some friction now because Ray took Santos Escobar's spot and won the title from Austin Theory, even though it should have been Santos' spot. And Santos beat Austin Theory 2 weeks ago when they had just a grudge match. This is Karrion Kross hinting at a stable, which perhaps will feud with the entire OC. This match itself goes 9 minutes. It's really the longest match of the night. There were some neat moves. AJ hits a springboard 450, but Scarlett helps Kross get his foot on the ropes to break the pinfall. And that's when Mishin gets involved with Scarlett. there were a couple of good sequences from Karrion Kross, but yeah, at the end, this just becomes too much AJ Styles to win it. He hits a Pele, then a Styles clash for the pin at around the 9-minute mark. Best bump of the night was Scarlett taking a serious bump going over the announce table. And she's not really someone we would consider a wrestler. I mean, she's been in the ring, but it's just for sort of gratuitous stuff. Michin throws her over the announce table, and Scarlett takes off into this move like she's been shot out of a cannon. And she flies over this announce table and crashes to the floor. Great bump, Scarlett. I applaud you for that. That's some effort there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. The 450 splash was cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about the botches?
What were some of the things that you thought they were a little sloppy on?
Karrion Kross, well, for starters, just the finisher in general, Karrion Kross, AJ Styles is holding him, but he almost slips out when he's doing his Styles crash. And he has kind of like it was actually pretty good by Karrion Kross to kind of keep himself held up. And
okay.
then that was really awkward. But there was a couple transitions where basically it seems like Karrion Kross botched something and like AJ Styles kind of falls with him. And then they just kind of transition into like AJ Styles going on top of him. But there was one or two times that happened during the match where it was, and the crowd just went flat. Like, okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Like he comes off the corner and he's got him and they both just sort of fall. Like they just fell. And it's weird because they have been working this rivalry for several months now. So you'd be like, come on, let's know how to take the finish of AJ Styles. You know, let's really work that one in and understand how to do that. But ultimately,
are you interested in a stable with Karrion Kross at the helm, perhaps feuding with the OC or perhaps not?
No.
Okay, it might be stable overkill. Like other than LA Knight, who's not in a stable?
Yes, we are getting a lot of stables, but also as far as Karrion Kross is concerned, really kind of a weird rivalry with AJ Styles. It's over, and that's probably the best part of it. And I think the right winner is AJ Styles. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, we're kind of disjointed in the SmackDown. Like, I think we're seeing a couple. I think we're seeing some signs of we gotta get some new, either some things on the road right now, or let's finish some of this stuff up. Like, let's say, for example, Bobby Lashley's, he's made a stable. Like, we've seen so many vignettes. Like, no,
which I like. And did you see him drop that phrase in there? He says whether SmackDown is ready for some new blood. Like maybe the bloodline is on its way out. Is SmackDown ready for some new blood? Yeah. Bobby Lashley, Montez Ford, and Angelo Dawkins backstage, well dressed, sitting around the table. And that's a faction I'm interested in because it answers our question of what are they going to do with the Street Profits and what are they going to do with Bobby Lashley. I think that would be an interesting faction because you have an A-lister on top of it, an elite world champion capable guy in Bobby Lashley. You have other guys who have held titles in the past and are definitely capable of it in Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. It gives them all kind of a harder edge, but in a cool way.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins now is these well-dressed, just real cool looking tough guy hitmen to me, that's a lot tougher than, the Viking Raiders dressing up as Vikings. That's cartoonish tough. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins now, this is not cartoonish tough.
Yeah,
this is tough.
I like Bobby Lashley like sipping on little, little glasses of champagne, and you could kind of see the transition for Angelo Dawkins, uh, the Street Profits, basically
Mhm.
going from like frat boys, because that's what they were like with the red
Yes,
solo cups. So
the
like
Red Solo
there is
Cup.
a kind of a natural progression. Like they're going from the red solo cup to like nice suits and champagne, and now they're all grown up. So they have a grown up person gimmick instead of a child gimmick.
I like it. So that's one of the other faction things going on. Now there's one more faction that rears its head again here. I won't say ugly because I like them. Um, it was going to be the match of the night until it got thrown out after 9 minutes.
Yeah,
Bailey, the new WWE Women's Champion Io Sky, and Dakota Kai is back. All of Damage Control. They interrupt a match between Charlotte Flair and Asuka, which was the first match of the night. Um, I got to hand it to Charlotte and Flair and Asuka because they know this match isn't going anywhere.
I know.
They know this match is getting thrown out. And for 9 minutes, these two wrestlers worked a really entertaining match that I was like, wow, this takes me back to when SmackDown would give us a killer opening match,
Yeah.
like an Usos tag team title match to lead off the show or something.
Mhm.
Like this was fantastic. And then it gets thrown out like, okay, they're trying to establish that Damage Control really is trying to assert themselves as the top of the pecking order, even though this women's division on SmackDown is loaded with
Yeah,
talent.
it really is.
That Damage Control is going to be on top of it. It's the opposite of the problem they're having on Raw, where they're desperate to find someone to face Rhea Ripley and to get into a believable program with Rhea. On SmackDown, it's like they are loaded
Yeah, they really are.
with
They've got
top
like
talent in the women's division, right?
they've got 5 people that could be the champ, should be the champ. When they had the opener with the 2 women, Asuka and Charlotte, I was like, "Oh man, I really wanted to see this match." So,
Yeah.
and I think that's the other thing. I was just like, Damage Control runs Rough Shop, uh, and I was like, "Damn, do we really need?" I was like, now looking at the SmackDown, I was like, "Man, they really needed a good match in SmackDown. They need one a good match, and this could have been it, but they decided to just make it a throwaway."
Yeah. So that was going to be my match of the night, except it didn't count.
Right. Dom, I'm looking through my notes here, and that's about all I have.
That's it. They
Any
wished a happy 70th birthday to Hulk Hogan.
That was so random. His birthday.
I
He
love it. Happy 70th, Hulkster.
he's he's back. He's an icon. So they hilarious how the WWE does this. So there was some old footage of Hulk, and it's not so favorable. Let's put it like that. I won't get deeper into it, but they kind of like declined that it existed, and eventually it came to light, and they removed all the Hulk Hogan alumni stuff, all the merchandise. They got it all, and and they totally got rid of his identity from WWE. And they do this for like 6 months, and now he's just back. Oh yeah,
It's kind of like Vince, right?
it's the Vince thing. People forget about it. We'll overreact, we'll overkill it, and then suddenly he's back. But he should be back because I'm hearing rumors. I mean, he's saying this, but he is notoriously a huge liar. But he's saying he wants to come back and do a match, like a retirement match. So
He's 70 years old, and it's been a long time since he could really move in the ring.
it's been a while. He looks like $1,000,000 right now, but who knows how he can actually move? Can
Yeah.
he can take some of the gear, some of the steroids, and do the bicep curls and be really big, but can he move around and not?
Then he can do the Shane McMahon leapfrog and blow out his quad.
Right. And Jane is not nearly the age of Hulk. All right, Dom. Well, we're going to move on to our next segment here. We have the lead, we have the follow, and we're going to do thumb drive.
It's time. It's drive time. It's thumb drive time. Which one do you want to go first? Or do you want to do simultaneous?
Well, I'll go ahead first.
Go for it.
So I recorded this SmackDown and I was unable to fast forward through the commercials or anything I didn't want to see. This was a tough one to watch. This was like
Okay.
I was watching it on Saturday or Sunday morning and I was like, oh, I wish I'd fast forward because like there was just so much junk. Um, some of the stuff is a shame if we maybe pivoted to like a real match with Rey Mysterio. Um, this could have been a thumbs up, but gonna give it thumbs down. Dom, what'd you think for your thumb drive?
I wavered on this because the promos and some of the storyline stuff they were hinting at for me was was interesting enough, especially understanding they're coming out of SummerSlam. But when I can't identify a match of the night on a wrestling program, I have to lean thumbs down.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, the storylines are interesting, but ultimately you watch a wrestling program for the wrestling. Otherwise, you could just read a few articles and just get a video clip here or there. But I was there Friday night watching a wrestling program, and I couldn't identify something in a wrestling match that I thought helped anybody.
It almost feels like if they had just done either no schmaz with Charlotte and Asuka, or if they had given Ray and Austin Theory, which this is kind of a no-brainer. Ray and Austin Theory should have gotten like 20 minutes because they were starting
It's a
to tear
title
it up.
match.
Yeah, it should have been 20 minutes. They could have torn it up, the two of them. He could have dropped the title and been like, "Wow, this is a great match." Like they have both have the capability to do it, and that would have made a thumbs up. But we're gonna go two thumbs down. This is our first two thumbs down.
Yeah, we haven't been doing the thumb drive that long. Maybe it's been about a month or so, but yeah, this was a show that I could have just read a rundown and gotten some online video clips of.
Yeah, that's about it. All right, Dom. So let's mosey on down. So we have the thumb drive here, and we're doing a new segment, or I should say, we've been doing this segment for a while, but we're kind of adjusting a little bit on the fly what we're going to do differently here. So we are doing cheap heat. So we like to make little videos of some articles we read online, some maybe some trending topics, and then make small videos about them. Logan Paul, we've been feasting on our
Mhm.
YouTube channel. We have been, I mean, the views have been through the roof if you put anything with Logan Paul in it. So I know I'm saying this right now on YouTube. Please don't listen too strongly to this YouTube algorithm, but anything with Logan Paul, it just blows up. So I'm going to talk about him a lot. But let's go to the first cheap heat we have here, Dom. Go ahead and pull it
I
up.
thought this would be the lead of cheap heat here. Is Roman Reigns suffered an undisclosed injury at SummerSlam. I did not think it was evident. They didn't give us any details here. Just that Wrestling Observer Dave Meltzer reported it. Fightful Select, that's Sean Ross Sapp. So two guys who are considered very well worn wrestling journalists wrote about it, talked about it. I don't know. If he did get hurt, it was not evident to me the way the end of the SummerSlam match played out. They didn't favor anything during the SmackDown segment where you thought, well, he's clearly covering for an injury. But then again, they've been doing this for a while with Roman because he is battling leukemia, and he mentioned a little more than a year ago that it affects him enough that he has to be a part-time wrestler. So we've gotten to that rhythm where if Roman has a big match, for a while afterwards, he's not going to be in another match, and they're going to be very careful with how physical he gets, even with just a schmaz. So they were careful with him on this SmackDown. He did not look like he was hobbling or nursing an injury. So whatever it was, they protected him well. This is more a story about if it was a big injury, then it's, well, they've dodged the bullet here. But if it involves Roman Reigns in an injury, it's big news, right?
Oh, for sure. You definitely don't want it would be horrible if he lost the title, his longest reign due to injury. Although they probably could get really creative with it, but if he just was injured and had to drop it, that would be very anticlimactic.
It would.
But
Wouldn't that be terrible? Oh my goodness. It'd be worse than Edge having to retire while he's champion.
honestly, Dom, he doesn't have to wrestle till WrestleMania. He could do promo after promo. He doesn't have to do any of these what are these called? PLEs, these pay-per-views that aren't
He's probably got to get back in there for maybe Survivor Series or Royal Rumble.
Royal Rumble.
He's got to
Yeah.
do something on the big shows, right?
So he has to at least
I
wrestle.
mean, okay, he's not going to defend the title on a SmackDown on free TV on a Friday night on Fox. I get it. But they can't hide him for too long, but I think the rhythm they've gotten into with him, of all the people who could suffer a minor injury and not have it disrupt what they're doing, Roman Reigns is probably it.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's the guy that he could take some time off because he doesn't have to defend the title, and I don't think he should really. I like this. I don't think he's a fighting champ like every week he has to wrestle.
He is not. He is not a fighting champ like Austin Theory.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of fighting champs, I am sad about this one. Sonya Deville had a legitimate ACL tear. I believe it was during her SmackDown match. They were on SmackDown. It was July 28th. This was right before SummerSlam when they got squashed by Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair in a non-title match. I like Sonya. She's fantastic. She puts over other wrestlers. I like her character. She always looks strong. The women's division is snake bit, especially with injuries. I mean, a lot of WWE seems snake bit at this time. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are nursing injuries at this point on the men's side. But Raquel and Liv, so Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, who had the tag team titles, both got injured. Now Sonya Deville is injured. That women's tag team division is just done. I mean, they're really going to have to rescue it. Maybe some of that new blood they brought up from NXT can really put some life into it. Damage Control really can't get back into it because they put a singles title on Io Sky. So like the one obvious, there could be a great tag team. Like they're off in another program now, elevating the singles position. So this is really unfortunate, not only for Sonya, we wish her a speedy recovery and that she's back to full health, but she's really a good in-ring performer. And she and Chelsea Green really came into their own, I think, with this gimmick of the angry Karens who keep asking for the manager.
It's really weird. I should say this, like you said, it's snake bitten title. Does anybody even want to be the women's tag team champ right now? Because they are always constantly getting injured or there's something happening. There's something.
Yeah, not if this is what happens to you. Like, I say, oh, no, thank you. I'll stay in the mid card and whatever.
Liv Morgan got injured. We have Sonya Deville getting injured. You have Raquel. You have people retiring. Really, like Ronda Rousey just basically quitting the WWE, so she had to drop the title. So, yeah, this has been a rough one. They've had a rough go. They have plenty of talent, so we'll have to see. Somebody will have to step up. There's a lot of injuries right now in WWE, though.
There are, and one other injury we mentioned her already on the program, Bayley. She surrounding Money in the Bank was interviewed by the aforementioned Sean Ross Happier for his Fightful Select. Bayley gives a neat 4-minute interview there where she's sort of being friendly, but at the end she doesn't really break kayfabe too much. I mean, she insults him a little bit and tries to talk about how her injuries and maybe getting passed over in the past is why she's so glad to have Io Sky and Dakota Kai with her now in Damage Control. So she's kind of bringing in some real life stories and trying to use it to put over the storyline, which I like to see from anybody, but especially from a heel. And so Bayley, another person who got legitimately hurt at a house show last month. Women's division, Snake Pit. It seems like they wanted her to get in the ring there with Shotzi, but they've been delaying that until I guess they think Bayley's really recovered enough to go. They've been having her like interfere on behalf of Io Sky since then, where Bayley doesn't have to bump much or
That
really
makes sense.
execute a big. I mean, she can hit somebody with the Money in the Bank briefcase.
Okay, this
She
all
doesn't have to execute a move.
really makes a lot more sense, Dom, because Shotzi shaved her head and did nothing. So
Yeah.
she went, first of all, I don't know why she did that, because the green hair was kind of her gimmick. Then she just shaved her head, which isn't that crazy. You know, people do it all the time. So she shaved her head for the character change, and you're like, oh man, she's gonna have this big program with Bayley, and it never materialized. So it kind of makes sense that, you know, she's banged up.
Yeah, I mean, but by the time they finally get in this match, I mean, Shotzi's gonna have to shave her head again.
I know.
She's gonna walk out there with like, a chia pet.
Right. It's not gonna look that crazy at all. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Bayley can talk. She gives a good showing for herself here. I like seeing the wrestlers who can go out and it's the new media age. You've got to be on podcasts. You've got to be granting interviews. If you're not doing your own stuff on social media, you're entertaining a lot of the wrestling media and doing things for them. And I think you've got to strike a balance. We talked about how Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman did this when they went on First Take with Stephen A. Smith on ESPN. Well, you've got to strike a balance between being accessible as a person while also bringing some of your on-screen in-ring persona to all of your public interactions. And I think Bayley's one of the wrestlers who gets that and can do it. So yeah, Bayley, she's been doing great work as she's been recovering from that lower leg injury she suffered at the house show in July. Can't wait to see her back at full strength or near full strength so that she can wrestle again. She's a top talent. She's part of that loaded SmackDown's women division near the top. Get well soon. But in the meantime, yeah, it was entertaining to see her go for about 3 minutes here with a probably the premier and maybe most trusted of the wrestling journalists.
Yeah.
Fightful Select really has a good reputation.
Yeah. And I think one of the things is, like you said in the interview, she buries Sean Ross Sapp at the very end of it. She starts to kind of take shots at him, like, why would I want your approval, or something about like music taste? Like, I don't care.
Yeah. Like, I don't need your approval.
About your cat. And then ultimately, I think because Bayley, this character that she's kind of developed into, she's funny and she's good on the mic. So if she's injured for a little bit, Io Sky can be the champ and she can be the mouthpiece.
Yep. Yeah, it lets her use whatever talents are hers that she has, and it's one of the things about being versatile and being so good for so long is you can do other things if you have to nurse a leg injury for a month and a half. So another person from the women's division, but mostly over on Raw, who we've mentioned, Rhea Ripley. Congratulations. She and Buddy Matthews announced their engagement within the last week. Buddy Matthews from AEW. So this is one of those. Apparently, they met while each was in the WWE universe. They stayed together even as Rhea stays in WWE, but Buddy goes to AEW, and yeah, it's Rhea Ripley. They're not sure what to do with her over on Raw as far as having a singles challenger to her. She's tearing it up with Judgment Day. But congratulations to her and Buddy Matthews. They apparently met in May of 2020. had some great chemistry. So some people have been saying, well, wait a minute, on screen she's paired with Dominic Mysterio. Well, we've already heard that Dominic Mysterio was also engaged months ago to his longtime girlfriend. So yeah, real life and on screen, they're different. You know,
And also the relationship between Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley doesn't necessarily appear to be like they're a couple. There's something very weird going on with that Dominic Mysterio Rhea Ripley thing where he's calling her mommy and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily that, but yeah, I think that is pretty common for the wrestlers you can see now getting married because they probably have trouble meeting anybody else because they're always on the road, they're jet setting. They're probably only have like fans around them and stuff, so that's probably an odd dynamic. But
they've
we,
mentioned some of these, like Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch.
yeah, so
That
we'll have,
gets mentioned here. Carmella and Corey Graves, other WWE power couples. Montez Ford and Bianca Belair.
I'll tell you what, Buddy Matthews right now in AEW, he's doing pretty good. They have him in Collision, AEW Collision, that show
Okay.
specifically, and he is he's in a weird faction, but he's a pretty good worker, and he's a good hand to have on that show. So not as big of a star as, let's say, for example, Rhea Ripley, but yeah, congrats to them. Any other cheap heat you want to talk
There's
about?
just wanted to throw the happy couple up there. They kind of announced it to the world on Instagram, but there they were. There they were having a good time, apparently down on the beach. And there's Rhea and Buddy. Great for them. One more thing I wanted to mention. Eric Bischoff was asked on his podcast about the fans organically loving LA Knight. And, he's saying he doesn't mind them slow playing it if they get it right. He and Conrad Thompson, they do their 83 Weeks podcast. And so LA Knight, not only is he getting some more coverage on, 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff is not a WWE centered podcast. But for them to talk about it, it must be pretty big news. But they're not only talking about LA Knight, they're talking about the fans being organically behind him. And other times when this has happened in wrestling, they made a comparison during this short clip here. It only goes about 4 or 5 minutes. They talked about how in WCW this happened with Goldberg. Like the initial plan was not for Goldberg to be pushed to the moon, but the crowd just loved it. And they said, well, what if we give him more to do and see where it goes? It doesn't mean that you got to put a belt on LA Knight right away. And in fact, in this interview clip here, LA Knight entertains that Eric Bischoff entertains that internet vibe that people have going where, yeah, just put a belt on him. And Bischoff says, okay. And then what? As in, don't screw this up because you're too eager to just throw a belt on the guy and you have no long-term plans involved. You don't have him in a rivalry. You don't have a program creatively that's worthy of not only his talent, but the reaction that he's generating from the crowd.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, I think time will tell, but it does feel like he should have a title or he should have won the US title at some point, especially because they're kind of they hot potatoed it to Rey Mysterio, so there isn't a really big plan for it anyway.
Do you like LA Knight versus The Miz? Do you think this is the kind of build that could be good? One other thing they mentioned in this video is they talked about how the slow playing Cody Rhodes and not just having him finish his story right away at WrestleMania 39 has been great for Cody.
Well, I mean, I think it's been where Roman was so strong that he's been acceptable as the heel that gets chased, and he could just continue to be in that role. I don't know if we could pop it over to Cody, and it would if we'd be nearly as excited about the product itself if Cody was the champ going into SummerSlam. But who knows? I think ultimately, that's an interesting perspective from Eric Bischoff. Some people would say Eric Bischoff. What the hell do you know? But clearly, he's been in the industry for long enough, and he's done some things correctly, and he did something great, and some things not so great with WCW. But
Yes, and he certainly knew how to tell a long story.
mhm.
I mean, towards the end, they were just throwing whatever against the wall would fit. Um, the end of WCW was not good, but earlier in his heyday, when Eric Bischoff was really sort of in charge of steering creative, they had a lot of people working on it with him. But they knew a thing or two about long stories.
And I'm gonna throw a special cheap heat,
All
Dom.
right.
So I'm gonna just go ahead and I'll give us a little bit of a special cheap heat here.
Okay.
We're talking about AEW.
Which we have done before. And we even mentioned them a little bit here. But yeah, AEW, they've got a big pay-per-view in London coming up, right?
So not only are we talking about AEW, but we're specifically talking about
that guy on the screen there, CM Punk.
Is he on the screen?
I see him on the screen, and he looks intense.
We're talking about CM Punk. After AEW Collision, he takes another shot at Hangman Adam Page and says he can't sell any merchandise and that this is the home of, he's in Carolina or one of the Carolinas, and he's like, this is the home of Adam Page, and he can't sell any merchandise and he can't push any tickets. So CM Punk still going pretty hard with the, why is this guy trashing people in that's outside of storyline? Like, it's not building to any storyline. It's just how he really feels. So he's really still on the edge there. What do you think of this stuff with CM Punk, or are you familiar with it, Tom?
If this is not something he's supposed to be doing just for heat in a storyline, then it seems that Punk really straddles the line between what the old timers would call going into business for yourself.
Yes.
It seems like there's a lot that CM Punk does that's just designed to get CM Punk over and not necessarily be best for the role he currently has in a larger company. I don't know. You tell me. You've watched him more in AEW. Is he that guy? Is he the guy who's like? Is this what would happen if Logan Paul was full time in the WWE, just doing his own thing all the time, like in business for himself?
He's totally in it for himself. I don't think that there's ever been quite the, or I should say, he's one of the all-time egos. I don't know what's wrong with him, and it's really interesting because he's one of these guys that's straight edge. So he doesn't even like, he's, there's some unfortunate incidences where in pro wrestling, some guys are just too messed up on drugs and they can't help themselves. He's completely straight edge. He's just a complete jerk.
Yeah, he's totally sober doing this. He knows what he's doing.
Unless this is an angle where he's going to build something with Hangman Adam Page, who desperately needs to be built back up after being the AEW champion, and I haven't really seen too much of him. And now he kind of just pals around with the Elite.
Okay.
He needs a real match with CM Punk, or if this isn't, this is just another bad look. And how much more do we have to deal with this? Like, how much more does he have to tank this company?
So, you mentioned Hangman Adam Page hanging out with the Elite. I mean, Punk famously has real animosity between him and the Elite, or at least did at the time of his injury last year that forced him to take several months off. Now, on one hand, that led to the elevation of MJF. And then it led to CM Punk returning, and now he's got his belt and MJF has his belt. And so there's like rival belts going on in the AEW. Is this something that could be just playing it, that CM Punk versus the executive vice president's faction?
Hopefully it is something that moves closer toward that angle. It's just odd because he shoots the promo after the show, but I don't know if that. I mean, I don't know if they're clever enough to think like, oh yeah, do it after the show, and that'll get even more heat, or if he just went.
They'd be playing 3D chess there.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, we need you to say something that gets as widely viewed as possible. Wait until we're off the air.
Yeah, if he said this while they were on the air, the crowd, yeah, you'd see it on TV and you'd be like, whoa, that's pretty intense. But instead, he did it off the air. So you have people on YouTube making tons of money. You have like guys like me and you getting views, but
Sure.
but TNT missed out on all that, So if it really is an angle, TNT would probably prefer that. Hey, have that on our TV show rather than afterwards. Like the most notable thing that happened is after the cameras go off.
Well, I mean, CM Punk still has it as a wrestler, right? He's not just in there embarrassing himself. I mean, he can go still.
Yeah, no, he definitely can still go.
So you don't mind him being top of the card and being here. It's just weird that he would call out Hangman Adam Page in this fashion.
Exactly. He's great at the top. He's a very interesting guy to say the least. Like he gets a lot of buzz, but it's and I have our good friend Steve LaCastro, our buddy Steve LaCastro. He
Yeah.
loves AEW, and he's so sick of CM Punk. He like hates him. He like hates the
Uh-oh.
whole thing. And it's not even like it's all go away heat.
It's go away heat. It's not Dominic Mysterio heat.
It's not Dominic Mysterio where we're booing him because we know he's bad, or even MJF, where you're kind of in on the joke. Okay, this dude's a heel, but he's great. CM Punk is more like, nah. Let's calm down with this. All right, Dom.
Okay, interesting. And this is going into maybe their biggest pay-per-view ever. They've got like a week and a half until they're over in London for, what's it called? Is it All In?
It is in London for All In. So yeah, the AEW show is going to be a huge show, but we got another huge show, August 18th. This is telling you goodbye. August 18th, tickets go on sale for WrestleMania. Dom and I will be there. We're going to WrestleMania, folks. So
WrestleMania 40, which will originate from planned at this point from Philadelphia.
Yep, coming live from Philadelphia, from the Eagles Stadium, Lincoln Financial Field. Philadelphia, of course, a great wrestling city. And we're going to talk, if you think about it, ECW was originated here. So very influential in a lot of the styles that were taking place in the 2000s, 2010s. Like moving forward, a lot of people wanted to do what was happening in ECW. And Paul Heyman ran it, and he is a monster in pro wrestling right now because he pretty much runs the bloodline. And it's one of the great
He's the glue.
He for sure is the glue. And so that's all. We have WrestleMania tickets coming up. We have a couple clips we've been making that have gotten a lot of traction, which is so. Thank you, our YouTube audience, for the people that are watching these Logan Paul videos and our Who Would Win in a Fight video. They're starting to get more and more views. We're starting to get more and more subscribers. We're up to 111. So we were at 100 2 weeks ago. So we're getting like one a day. So
help us get to the next 100, right? We passed into triple digits, and now it's on to the next benchmark. Thank you, and help us get to the next one if you haven't subscribed yet.
Yep. And Dom,
any comments during? We welcome those as well during the live streams, or leave comments after you watch the recorded videos.
And let us know what you think. Hey, you guys aren't live on Friday. What's going on? You're horrible. Go ahead, trash us. Bury us in the comments.
Yes. Be like Bailey talking to Michael Cole.
And guess what? If it's too mean, I'll just delete it. It's YouTube, but we can delete the comments. But, give it to us.
Do the Matt Hardy delete.
Yes. Delete.
No, we're only joking around unless you do something that's like, obscene or something,
Yes. All right, Dom. Well, thanks so much for joining, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on here Tuesday night. And thank
Hey,
you.
here's something for the Italian goodbye. You mentioned earlier, and we never got around to it. New announce team on SmackDown: Corey Graves, Kevin Patrick, and Michael Cole. Wade Barrett is over on Raw now, where Michael Cole's apparently pulling double duty. So they've got a 2-man booth over on the 3-hour program and a 3-man booth on the 2-hour program. And Michael Cole is involved in each of them. Help the show, hurt the show, no difference. What do you say?
I will have to say, I was liking Wade, the 2-man booth with Wade Barrett. I thought Wade did a good job staying out of the way. Like, I didn't really pay attention to what he was saying.
Okay.
So it wasn't really irritating me, but he wasn't really like adding too much, which I'm fine with. But then Corey Graves is a little, sometimes he says some stuff and it's just like, it's very roll the eye. So how about you? What do you think?
I don't know too much about them. I agree with you. I thought Wade Barrett really settled into a good role there, where he was a pretty serviceable color guy. He wasn't in the way. I mean, he got his shots in when he had to. He was usually on the side of the heel, which if you're going to have an announcer lean one way or the other, a color guy lean one way or the other, that's usually the safe way to lean.
Right.
Like, because your play-by-play guy is mostly going to be a homer for the baby face anyway. So if your color guy is also that way, it may be too much. So I thought Wade Barrett was serviceable. I don't know why there's 3 of them. I mean, 3-man booths have always been a little suspect to me. There's very few that actually pull it off.
Yeah,
the New York Mets in baseball with Gary Cohn and then Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling as ex-Met players, they pull it off like 5 out of 5 stars, but it's rare that a 3-man booth works.
I like that. We'll end on that. That's a good little short. We'll end on that one. So, Dom, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for joining at home. Like, subscribe, do the thing, and have a great rest of your evening.
Check us back again. I mean, the next SmackDown will be here before you know it, John.
3 days. All right, Dom. Have a great rest of your evening.